But of course, the big question is, why is it happening now? Why didn't we see the return of Asia 50 years ago, 100 years ago? Why now? And the answer to that question is what prompted me to write my book. And I came up with the answer that the reason why the Asian countries are returning with such force now is because they finally understood, absorbed, and are implementing what I call 7 pillars of Western wisdom today. And in the 45 minutes that they allotted to me for my lecture, I'm going to spend a large part of it discussing the 7 pillars. I'll discuss after that some great challenges that we still face, and then hopefully open up the floor for question and answer after that, because I've been told that many of you have some difficult questions for me, which I'm looking forward to getting. But I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the 7 pillars of Western wisdom here, because I'm often asked the question, can other regions of the world, can Latin America, for example, grow as fast as Asia? And the simple, honest answer is yes. Latin America too can grow as fast as Asia. But what it takes is an understanding of the 7 pillars of Western wisdom. So what's the first pillar of Western wisdom? And here, quite simply, this is an obvious one, and many of you in this room are far better experts at it than I am. And that, of course, is free market economics. Once you implement free market economics, your economy grows. And the best public policy laboratory that demonstrates this, of course, is China. And as you know, China has tried to implement both centrally planned economics under the Chairman Mao's time and free market economics. And I was in China, when they still had centrally planned economics. I was in Beijing, and I don't know how many of you have been there recently, but when I was there in 1980, there were no neon signs, no skyscrapers, no cars, just bicycles everywhere, and everyone was wearing Maoist suits. And I remember I went to a barber. So I had a very nice haircut. The barber took over an hour to cut my hair. So when he finished, I said to him, "Thank you very much." I said, why do you take so long to cut my hair? He said, well, whether I do 5 haircuts or 10 haircuts or 20 haircuts, I get paid the same. It's an iron rice bowl, so why hurry? When you get paid the same, why work hard? When I tried to get a taxi in Beijing, I went out the hotel, there were 10 taxi drivers, 10 taxis. I kept waving at them, none would come to me. So finally I went up to them, I said, "Please, I need a taxi." And then the 10 taxi drivers were arguing, "It's your turn to drive, I've just driven, it's your turn to drive, Because whether they drive the taxi 5 times, or 10 times, or 20 times, they get paid the same. So why work hard? And what's amazing today is that the same people who stopped working in Chairman Mao's time have now become the most hard-working people in the world. And why? Free market economics. And if you go to China today, the same people who didn't want to work hard are now working 24 hours a day. Because if they stop the construction of a shop front, they lose 24 hours of business. So they work 24 hours a day. And that's why today you can see this spectacular result. You have a very unnatural sight of the world's most populous country, China, delivering the fastest growing economy in the world for over 30 years. If you want to imagine how unnatural it is, think of the fattest boy in your class when you were school children. And just imagine the fattest boy in your class winning the 100-meter race. It doesn't happen. But for China, the most populous country, to succeed is a sign of the power of free market economics. And now, amazingly enough, partially as a result of what you have seen in this great global financial crisis that we have gone through in the last few years, you find something quite amazing. That the Western societies that used to be the biggest believers in free market economics are beginning to lose faith in it. And the Asian societies, who initially in the 1960s and 70s resisted Western advice to open up their economies, are now becoming the biggest believers in free market economics. And if you want proof, it's very simple. Ask yourself, where are the biggest free trade agreements being signed today? Are they being signed in Europe? Are they being signed in North America? Or are they being signed in Asia? And the answer is that they're being signed in Asia. You have the China-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, which involves 1.7 billion people. It came into force in January 2010. You have the India-ASEAN FTA, which involves 1.6 billion people, came into force in January 2010. The Korean-ASEAN FTA came into force in January 2010. Australia-New Zealand-ASEAN FTA came into force in January 2010. And the Japan-ASEAN FTA is coming into force in January 2012. And at a time when the Asian countries are busy liberalizing, opening up their economies, the United States of America, which used to lecture the world on the importance of free trade, which led the drive for free trade for decades, cannot ratify 2 free trade agreements that it has signed. It signed the free trade agreement with Korea, cannot be ratified. It has signed a free trade agreement with Colombia, which will benefit the United States more than it will benefit Colombia, and the Congress cannot ratify it. And believe me, it makes a huge difference whether you believe in free market economics or you don't. And at a time when the Western societies are retreating from it, the Asian societies are embracing it, and therefore the fastest growing economies will continue to be in Asia. So what's the second pillar of Western wisdom? And this, of course, is an obvious one. It's mastery of science and technology. And indeed, you want to understand, how did Europe go out and conquer the whole world? It's very simple. Superior science and technology. That's why a small state, a small European state like Portugal, could go out and colonize Brazil in South America, colonize Angola and Mozambique in Africa, and take a bite of India in Goa, and take a bite of China in Macau. How did a small state like Portugal do it?